Mortal Kombat X is right around the corner to mark the 23rd year this franchise has been around to pollute the minds of children with its violence and gore. It's incredible just how many kids have killed each other with spine rips and dragon morphs. All sarcasm aside, Mortal Kombat is pretty influential, helping spawn a ratings board that we still use today. It also provided a nice little scapegoat for concerned individuals to latch onto for their bad parenting. The new entry in the series is set to include a lot of new and reimagined characters that are sure to be great additions to the Mortal Kombat universe. But remember when they tried that before? Mortal Kombat 4, some of the 3D games, and of course, Mortal Kombat 1. Sure, they may be series staples now, but in 1992 these characters were in all the lore around them were new. Some of these characters were cool concepts that evolved into iconic characters, but some of these designs aren't actually that great. Besides the palette swap nonsense, some of these characters are just not really interesting. Kano, Cage, Liu Kang, Sonya, they're all pretty generic at best. And the rest of the roster is alright. Character designs got better as the series progressed, but the first outing is actually pretty bland. The stages are actually, on the other hand, pretty well made, and it feels like many of these locales could be in a martial arts movie fight scene. Also, shout out to Dan Forden because the soundtrack is actually really good. It fits the tone and it really helps the presentation of the game. The first game in the series brought forth digitized actors and lots of violence, something that set it apart from the insanely popular Street Fighter 2. What also set it apart was the gameplay. It wasn't amazing or anything, but there were some interesting differences. 5 buttons, high punch, low punch, high kick, low kick, and block all led to a decent fighting game. The key difference here is that the block button exists and other minor things like how sweeping is performed. Blocking in most fighters is done by holding back or down back, and it's essentially become standard, but back in the 90s everything was fair game. Ed Boon, John Tobias, and the rest of the crew decided that button blocking should become a thing, and something that some games have actually adopted into their current control scheme. Another difference is how moves are performed. Street Fighter had 3 core motions for special moves: the quarter circle, the Z motion, and the charge motion. There were a couple of other variations like reverse motions, half circles, etc., but Mortal Kombat simplifies these motions to directions. A down, forward, forward plus punch in Street Fighter would be down, forward punch in Mortal Kombat. It seems like an insignificant difference, but this is actually one of the reasons future Mortal Kombat games are so controller friendly. I'm playing the PlayStation 3 version of MK on the Mortal Kombat Arcade Collection, which I feel is the best version overall, adding some filters and other minor graphics options. You can also look at the move list in the pause menu, so you can close out of Google now. Other than those minor additions, this game is essentially after a couple of patches, of course. Arcade perfect, and it includes all the modes that version had, like arcade and versus. Okay, so arcade fighting games obviously didn't have many modes, but they did have the graphics that the console ports were missing. Arcade mode is your standard quarter sinker, but there are also endurance matches that were added where you get to fight 2 cheap fucks instead of 1. Well, the game's not that hard, in comparison to its goddamn sequels at least, but we'll get to those soon. For as important as this game is, it hasn't aged amazingly well. The game is functional and the moves are pretty satisfying to pull off, but fundamentally, it doesn't carry much substance. Is it worth revisiting and playing with a friend? For 5 minutes maybe. It's okay and it really is quite forgettable at its core. But it wasn't. The big thing the game has going for it is the brutal nature of its combat. You could even say it's mortal. Okay, I'm really sorry about that, guys. That was terrible. As I was saying, blood spills everywhere when you attack your opponent, and the biggest gimmick is the, for the time, gruesome fatalities. They had a really cool bit of flair, and they are actually pretty awesome. Except Liu Kang's. That was utterly shit. Imagine that being the first fatality you did as a kid, after hearing rumors about these awesomely gory finishers that you could perform, and all you got was the Cirque du Soleil special. Now, I don't hate Mortal Kombat. I'm actually a pretty big fan, and I recognize the first game's merit. It's just that I can't go back and play this and honestly recommend it to everybody. It's an average fighter that did something wonderful as it paved the way for the rest of the series. Midway would go on to make some really kick-ass MK games, and for that I applaud you Mortal Kombat 1 for the lower mid-tier catalyst you are. Thank you for watching my review on Mortal Kombat 1, and I'll be back with a review on its sequel, and FYI, it's way better. But for now, leave any feedback down below, mash the like and sub buttons, and stay godlike fighting game fans.